In this podcast, chat about the win against Reading, celebrate Chuba's record, and look ahead to Swansea. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and this is our Boro Matchday chatter in a pod.
Wants support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Avenelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Avenelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Johnny, Dana, and Tom. We're the Boro podcast that gives you all of your Boro Matchday chatter in a podcast. And this podcast has been about numbers over the last few weeks, so I'm going to give you a little bit more. So 5-star Boro, a record-breaking Chuba Akpom, 1,000 goals at the Riverside, 7 home wins in a row, and 4 points off the automatic places. The feel-good factor is back on T-side, but not if you are Tom this morning, who had another day in hospitality and absolutely loves it. I mean, Tom, you had my life last week saying I was at a sparkling water factory, and I mean, I wish I was because that would have been amazing. But you know, I've got you back this week. But anyway, Tom, apart from another day in hospitality, how are you feeling about Boro at the moment?
Well, I'm pretty sure that'll be the last one until the end of the season. So back to the northeast corner from next time. But no, really happy with Boro at the moment. I was a little bit disappointed last week with the loss at West Brom. I mean, who wouldn't be? You never like to see your team lose games, and I just thought we were absolutely clobbered in that game. He seems to always do a number on us, unless it's that game where Watmore scored at away at Huddersfield. But I mean, we always seem to bounce back really well. I was reading earlier, we've not actually lost consecutive games under Carrick. It's always one loss, and then we'll bounce back with like a significant win in the next match. So really happy to see that, and almost like really happy to see my prediction from last week nearly come in, because it was 4-0 for a spell, and I was like, how have I even done this? And then we scored again. So I knew it would be a big win. I just didn't underestimated it clearly.
I mean, there's a couple of predictions that I could mention, but I'm not going to. But if people want to listen back to what Tom said about Chuba Akpom at the start of the season, and a particular ink that may have gone on his skin, that could happen. Didn't mention it. Anyway, Dan, how are you feeling about Boro at the moment?
Oddly very normal, and that's a really good thing, because I think confidence has become commonplace in the fan base, and certain deprecating narratives that I used to really push and hone in have become fallacies with this team. We don't score enough, we don't create enough, we'll never score one-on-ones, we'll never have a 20-goal a season striker. We've got that all. We're very creative, we score one-on-ones, we don't struggle to score goals, and we are creative. So it's just, they've all been dispelled, and I'm really, really happy for that, because I think this Middlesbrough team basically is everything that I've really hoped for in my fandom supporting Middlesbrough. So you can honestly have no complaints. It's just, we're riding the crest of a really joyous wave at the moment, and I hope that continues until the end of the season.
Yeah, and how I'm feeling. Everyone knows how I'm feeling. We're going Sizzler.
I think we've already gone Sizzler.
We've just sizzled right to the top. It's been unreal for like the last few weeks, and I know we lost against West Brom, and I'm glad I wasn't on the podcast and I was at the Sparkling Water Factory since and celebrating that instead. But it was a really good performance yesterday, wasn't it? And I thought Reading were poor at most parts in the game, but the more you look at the game and, the way that we were dissecting, the way we look at like the platforms to kind of like watch the game back to see if we can pinpoint stuff, Boro were just really, really good. And it's just so exciting to see a Boro side play the way we're playing, look so dominant, look so fluid, look so comfortable on the ball. And it's just mint. I've never, ever seen out like it as a Boro supporter. And I'm going to embrace it and enjoy every moment of it, because it's just unheard of. And you never know, Carrick could go one day and it just be all fall apart. and I won't have savoured it. So I'm going to savour this and enjoy it because we've been really good. We are still really good, and you can't define one defeat define the season, because it won't, because we've just come back every time. But in terms of like where we are now, and last week it was a case of the automatics are over at 7 points again. Then this weekend, it's back down to 4. The unpredictability of the championship is just is a fantastic thing to see. But do you think the automatics are on? I appreciate Sheffield might have to go to Reading to have their game in hand, but they've got some difficult fixtures. So, Dana, what do you think? Are the automatics on? I'm going to keep coming back to that because I feel like I keep asking you that question, but is it on now?
I think it is. I really do. I mean, I watched a little bit of their game against Blackburn, the early kickoff yesterday, and I think Heckingbottom said this afterwards, after he kicked a scoreboard again, probably, that they just weren't playing with their usual verve, and they weren't playing with the quickness and the tempo that they usually do. So potentially they are faltering a little bit. Now, if I look at the running, obviously there's been a lot spoken about the difficulty of Sheffield United's running. Do not discount Reading. I know we're going to talk about how poor they were yesterday, but at home, their form is significantly better than when they're on their travels. 2.6 points per game at home, Reading are averaging this season, compared to Sheffield United's 1.65 away. So in terms of PPD, that's not as cut and dry as people are expecting, or maybe expecting it to be. But the average PPG of the opponents that Sheffield United face in the running, 1.46. For ourselves, it's 1.45. So very close. They are starting to crack a little bit. And I know they've got a couple of injuries, well, quite a few injuries, and they've got an extra game against Blackburn in the Cup. So you never know. There's a lot riding on that game in hand. I always feel like whenever people say, oh yeah, well, we've got that game in hand, it's complacency, because I remember our games in hand in the promotion season, one against Reading, I believe, the Adam Forshaw game, was difficult. So it's always one of those narratives that people try to bend in their favour, but it's definitely not over. And even if they do win on Tuesday, I still think that Boro can really, really challenge them, because the majority of the rest of our games are at home, albeit by one, but we're very, very good at home. So I think that's what's in our favour. What it probably hinges on is our away form, which I think does probably need to be improved, just because I think it's really fine margins in this battle for second. So I think we need to improve away from home. But yeah, I'd be confident. I'd be confident that we could do it.
Tom, how are you feeling about it? Do you think that it's on?
I think it could be. Yeah, I was reading a tweet earlier this morning, saying there's still 33 points left to play for. It's 36 if you're Sheffield United and you got that game in hand. Interesting point that Dan has just made there about Reading's home form, and I think especially after being battered 5-0 by the mighty Boro yesterday, there might be some sort of reaction from that in the Reading players. I would think especially Paul Ince would be trying to get them fired up, judging on his post-match reaction to yesterday, which was quite fiery from himself. So, Reading might be fired up for that game and eager to make sure they don't have the same kind of result again. Sheffield United are faltering a little bit, and to be honest, I just want it to be interesting at the end of the season. I'd love it if it could go down to the last couple of games and at least, we be in with a chance for it. But, I think if Reading beat Sheffield United or get a draw on Tuesday, I'm going to really, really start to believe, because, it's going to be a 4 or maximum 5 points gap in that scenario. So, yeah, it's only 2 games to go until we can overtake them. So it is still a realistic possibility, I'd say.
Yeah, and if you want to look at probably history of the championship and last season in particular, I think it was Nottingham Forest were 12 points behind Bournemouth, and they took them to the very last game, and they went on a crazy winning streak. Bournemouth were faltering, and they were managed by Scott Parker. I mean, not surprised. They faltered, to be honest, but it's a case of it's never over until those 46 games are done, is it? And I think Middlesbrough have a really good opportunity to go for the automatics, and if we don't, then it's fine. But what we are doing, and you can't count out Blackburn either, they're playing really well at the moment. But you just can't count us out at the moment. I think just the way we're playing, the amount of goals we're scoring, and the way that we're creating plenty of chances and being having a lot of stability in defence. It's kind of like going one way at the moment, but I've just mock cursed us completely, and we're never going to win a game for the rest of the season.
But
But
what I would say though, Johnny, is it's testament to Carrick that we're even talking about this.
yeah,
Because yes, prior to the season kicking off, people probably would have earmarked Middlesbrough as title challengers, but it just never materialised that way under Chris Wilder. And we had to make up a decent bit of ground, but such is the nature of the Championship, we find ourselves in a position where it is a genuine possibility. And as you said, the way that we're playing, it feels like we're only going one way, but you never know. You never know with Boro, talking about some of those deprecating narratives, that there is always one, and it's the typical Boro-ness of this club. But I tell you what, if we get top 2, that would be absolutely brilliant. It really, really would. But it's a bonus for me. It's a bonus. If we can cement our place in the top 6, then I would love it, because I do want that Wembley redemption. I am not over. And I'm sure you're not as well, Johnny. Daniel Ayala, Cruyff turning near his own box and going 2-0 down within 20 minutes. Watching Cameron Jerome shush the Boro fans right in front of me really leaves a sour taste in the mouth. So I would like that redemption, please.
Yeah, Danny, no.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't. White Cruyff turning. No, it's 1-0. Oh, thanks, Danny. Who's injured at the moment for Blackburn in again at this time of the year. So I hope he's enjoying sunny Spain. But anyway, we're back to Boro and how and playing, and just doing what you were saying there on how we've improved. Obviously, a player who's continued to improve throughout the season. Chuba he broke the 33-year-old records set by Bernie Slaven and unlocked the Cleveland centre signing sensation stall. And he feels, and there's a lovely stat that if he keeps going the way he's going, he's going to end on 31 goals this season. But I'll ask you how many do you think he'll get? But if he keeps going at the same rate, it's 30 to 31. It's like 30.5. So I mean, if he scores a half goal, then it'd be bang on. But I don't think you can do that. If an assist, maybe give an assist, we'll do that. But anyway, what do you think impresses the most about Chuba, and why do you think he's just came from absolutely nowhere and just went on this huge redemption arc? Because it's just amazing. I cannot believe that we've got a footballer who's scored 20 league goals in a season. I never thought I'd see the day, Sabre drinker in. We'll never see it ever again. But Tom, what does impress you the most about Chuba?
Mate, I can't narrow down just one thing that has impressed me the most about him. Just everything, really. I remember, obviously, we went to go see the Marseille pre-season game right before, week before the season started, and he came off the bench and he looked a completely different player then. And he's just gone from strength to strength during the season. And bearing in mind, my overriding memories of Chuba were during the COVID seasons, and him missing from 6 yards out, missing a one-on-one from 12 yards out and stuff like that. We spoke about that on the pod before. I do wonder if the not having any fans in the stadium might have had some sort of impact there. But that's also not to take away from the hard work that he's clearly put in this year. He's talked about himself, the amount of kind of research and study he's done on other players like Ryan Giles to make sure he's in the right position, and really, really buying into the tactical style under Michael Carrick, and when he gets the ball, knowing where everyone's going to be. I just, there's no way to kind of narrow down just one thing about this year, because he's came back after his loan spell a completely different player, and absolutely leagues above what I can remember from him.
Dana, what do you think? What's impressive, but also how many do you think he'll end up on?
You know what? I can't stop smiling because this is just everything that I think we've always wanted from a Boro striker. And I agree with Tom. It's literally everything. It's not just his goal scoring, but it's his overall game. He's playing as basically a number 10, and not a creative one, but he's scoring from really good positions. He's still getting himself into the box. He's still poaching, and his all-round game is just very, very, very good. 15 goals at home, 6 away. Excuse me, averaging a goal every 99 minutes under Carrick. Top scorer in the championship by 4 goals. There's just a whole list of things that you can say about Akpom. His technical ability, as I've mentioned before, taking them all in deep positions, trapping it, turning the burst of pace. His intelligence as well. I mentioned this on BBC Tees yesterday when me and Mado were talking about Akpom, and because he's not playing as a number 9, he has to sort of adjust his game to suit his teammates, because he is the main core at times when Boro are maybe struggling to progress the play from defence through midfield to attack. He's the one that will come and drop deep into those pockets of space. And as I said, trap the ball, turn and go. And honestly, there was a point yesterday where he did that and Keith Stroud got in the way and he was fuming. And I love that moment because, as people that have listened to this podcast for a while will know that I've always said that Keith Stroud is the final boss of all inept referees in this division. And he was hating Keith Stroud yesterday. So that's one little novelty thing that I loved. But honestly, and in his humility as well, his post-match interview with BBC Tees was fantastic. He started it with "Hi guys." I just love him. I really do. I love him. And yeah, erect that little display just outside Superdrug in the Cleveland Center because he's got to sell all sorts of books.
Yeah, sell it all. Absolutely sell it all. And all of his goals as well have just helped Boro accumulate 43 goals in 20 games under Michael Carrick. And if you want context for that, we scored 49 goals in 46 games under Tony Pulis in the 18-19 season. And the season after, we actually beat that and scored 48 in 46 games under Woodgate and Warnock. But I thought that was a bit harsh on those because, split season, all that kind of stuff. And also we had a way worse squad under Woodgate than we did under Tony Pulis. But fun stats, we were starved of scoring goals. But we are now like the free scoring smoggies by the looks of it. But then how do you think we've been able to fine tune ourselves into that mold? Because, we're not used to seeing many goals at the Riverside. I think obviously 1,000 goals now since the stadium opened, which I appreciate is a lot when you think about it. But in terms of the last few years of where we've been and the managements that we have, managers that we've had, we haven't really been scoring many goals or creating too many chances, and it's always been an issue. But how do you think Carrick's got that tune and just right in Boro being able to become the free scoring smuggies?
I think it's just embracing the new wave of football and trying to take risks that complements the individuals to basically hone in on a really good collective unit as well. Because you see with Boro's shape, when they're attacking, it's still we still maintain a good shape despite having obviously 2 wingers that will cut inside and roam into central areas, because you'll have Tommy Smith and Ryan Giles bombing on as well. Everything's just really, it's just clicking. And I forgot to answer your question about how many goals Chuba will land on because I was too busy purring over him. But I think did you say like 31 that he'll finish on if he keeps up his current goal scoring rate?
At this current rate, he'll end on 30.5 was the exact number, but you can round it up to 31.
30 or 31. Yeah, I think, he's on 22 in all competitions now, isn't he? Honestly, he could get 30. I don't know how many games we've got. We've got 11 games left of the season or something like that. And as I said, the majority of those are at home, and he scored 15 of his goals at home this season. So, I think he could maybe 29, 30, maybe, barring any injuries, of course. But to answer your initial question about how we've become a free scoring team, I think it's the individuals that really complement the style of play that Carrick's implementing on this team, and everything just clicking together. It's just fantastic to watch, and massive credit to Carrick for that, because certain parts of the team, like Akpom in that deep position, like Riley McGree in that sort of roaming role, and the same with Aaron Ramsey on the other side. He has seen these things, he's implemented them, and they've paid dividends. So hats off to Carrick for that as well.
Tom, what do you think as well? Obviously on the pitch we're more fine-tuned, but off the pitch as well. How do you think Carrick's taken these players to another level, and a level that we've probably never seen before?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I've been questioning that myself. The big question for me is, what was Chris Wilder doing in the first 10 games or so of this season? to get those players playing so badly, considering we were going into the season as favourites for promotion contention, and he had us in the bottom three. Then Carrick's had to come in, pick the team up, and kind of coach this style into them, which I don't want to take away from the work that Carrick and the coaching staff have done, but I think the team was built to play like a decent technical possession-based style of football. And I think we just needed the right man in charge to coach that, which obviously at the start of the season wasn't Wilder. However well he did do for us when he first came in. So he's had to do that, and I think it's a real kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? It's to do with mentality as well. I think something I have noticed from a lot of Carrick's press conferences when he's being asked about the table, what you think this game means and stuff like that. It's always we just move on to the next game. We take it one game at a time. It's a very boring answer. I think you listen to the press conferences and you're just like, say something else. But the thing is, it does remind me of more successful times anyway. This might not be correct. It's just kind of coming off the top of my head, but I feel like Karanka was similar before he had his kind of Jose Mourinho regen heel turn towards the end of his end of his Boro career. I'm pretty sure he was quite level-headed in the early days, and it was very similar, where it's just like you can only get that one answer out of him, and it's just going to be that's the mentality. I do quite like that, even though, like I say, it is quite boring to hear in every press conference, but it's clearly the right way of looking at it, and it's clearly working.
It reminds me of Grant Ledbetter. Does it remind you of the way that Grant Ledbetter always used to approach his interviews? It was very sort of dry, didn't let too much sort of become the headline. It was always, that's football.
That's football.
And he was a great captain for us. So all these characters, individuals, sort of having that sort of approach to the media and that calmness, and clearly that influence is really, really positive.
Yeah, I used to love those like interviews. We go, so Grant, you've just won 5-0 today. How you feel? Yeah, well, that's football, innit? You win some. Thanks for that, Grant. Thank you very much for that insight. But I think in terms of like what you're both saying there, and how he's fine-tuned this squad and making us a little bit different. I think it's that relentless nature of us now, of how we are taking each game as it comes, but also if we are scoring, can we get another one? Can we get another one? Can we get another one? Like yesterday, we weren't happy at 4-0, we wanted to get a fifth, and we weren't happy on fifth, and we wanted to get a sixth. And I think that in itself is a really good culture to have, I think, on the pitch, and also competition for places in terms of Marcus Forss yesterday. I know Chuba gave him the penalty, and I know Chuba wasn't particularly happy about it at the time, and you could kind of sense it and you could see it. But he did give Forss the ball, and as soon as Forss scored, it was like no celebration. Right halfway line, let's go again, let's get another one. And he wants to score again, and I think you really want that from teams. And for me, like I think when you have that, you do become a little bit robotic to some extent, and they might not celebrate the wins as much. But for fans, celebrate that moment. But for a player, keep level headed, keep going again, try and get yourself to the next level, and keep playing, because the mindset we've got in the team at the moment is really, really strong, and we're doing some really good things. But then also the confidence side of things. 2 teams on the pitch yesterday, one full of confidence, one that didn't have any, and you could sense it just the way the teams were playing, but also the way that Reading wanted to receive or didn't want to receive the ball. And there's just so many clips of it. If you have time to rewatch the game, you just watch how Reading play, because they just didn't want the ball at any points of the game, and you could really see that. But whereas Boro, they were trying to move between the lines. Aaron Ramsey was fantastic, and we'll come on to that now. And we did get 5 goals yesterday. It could have been 6. It probably should have been 6, given that Archer was offside. But fun stat about Reading at the moment is that 40% of the games have conceded 2 or more in the league, and 20% of games have conceded 3 or more. So they're shipping away goals for fun at the minute. Paul Ince's side, and Boro made them mincemeat. Hey, mincemeat, not mincemeat. Poor joke from me. You did not miss my crap jokes last week, did you? The listeners did not miss them at all. But Dana, how would you assess the performance against Reading? Because it was just superb, right?
Yeah, and it was interesting because I wasn't really expecting that. I know Tom said 4-0, so he got the closest to sort of figuring out that game before it started. But I genuinely thought that Reading would come to the Riverside and sit back and basically parked the bus, sit in a really low block throughout, and basically try to contain us, frustrate us, nullify us. They were time wasting, the goalkeeper was, but it was just a very strange approach from Paulians because they basically played into Boro's hands by not doing everything that I've just said. Like, surely the best form of approach to that game was to basically try to emulate what West Brom did to us, albeit obviously, West Brom were at home, Reading playing away. But it was very strange. But yeah, it was as comfortable a game as you're likely to see. Reading had 0.14 XG, which is terrible. They've actually upgraded that FOTMOB from 0.13 XG, but nothing
Lovely.
in that first half, which was just terrible. But yeah, we were dominant throughout. Our combination play really, really slick, penetrating their defense, and just so good to watch. Again, Aaron Ramsey was fantastic. I will say that. My dad was wondering what he offered. He obviously didn't watch our lowdown video on Aaron Ramsey, but I think he
Cheers,
saw. Yeah, thanks, Dad. But he clearly saw what Aaron Ramsey can offer, because I thought he was really quick. He was bright. He was picking up really good areas of the pitch to be able to initiate 1-2s and give and goals. And working between him and Riley, who, obviously Riley McGurry is playing on the right as well. Whenever they play on the pitch, they do tend to switch positions at times. It was just, it was fantastic. The first time that we've scored 5 goals since we dispatched Peterborough in the Cup. And I went to that game and didn't see any of those goals because I left the game because I felt ill. And that was under Tony Pulis. So I pretty much missed every single goal under Tony Pulis.
yeah, you're very much right. But to be honest, I mean, you have to savour those moments under Tony Pulis, because we were lucky to get 5 shots, never mind 5 goals. So, like,
I
Jesus
couldn't even
Christ.
savour it because I just left. So I didn't even get to savour it because I just didn't see any of those goals go in. But hey, that's memories.
I mean, legend has it that you actually weren't ill. You just had enough of Tony Pulis football, or Tony Pulis football who you feel ill. Who knows?
Oh yeah, it probably did. Honestly, it probably did.
It's probably just looking at the lights all the time. Do you know what I mean? Where like the ball was that high in the air, you have to look at the floodlights, and you're like, oh god, this is...
I've just unlocked a core memory from this podcast where I think it was during the Tony Pulis era, where I came on here and I said I was so bored, I was trying to match the players' shirts together. So like whenever the maybe number 8 would be beside another number 8, I was like, they're matching. That's how bored I was during Tony Pulis. And look at us now, no more corresponding shirts being picked out from the crowd. It's just enjoying it, sitting down like you're on Red Card Beach in the middle of the summer with a cigar in your mouth thinking, we are really good.
And no one's sharing milk either. Anyway, Tom, in terms of what Dan was mentioning there about Boro being really good, is it a case of Boro were just amazing and Reading were just garbage, or do you think it's a mixture of both? Because it's obviously when you look at a final score, you just go, well, they've absolutely swept them apart and they've been amazing, but there is obviously 2 sides to it, and Reading look quite crap as well. So what do you think? Boro being really good or Reading being poor?
I think it's both.
I thought answer.
We were absolutely outstanding yesterday, as Dan has just said there, but also Reading were horrendous. You could tell in the first 5 minutes exactly the way that game was going to go. They couldn't get out their own half, and then when they did, they had Andy Carroll chasing down long balls, and he just had nothing to do for most of the game. I do remember there were a couple of balls where they just went to either side of him, and he just didn't even bother. Like that just kind of summed up the game for him. Really, he was. I think because of his record against Boro, we can always go into games where we're playing a team containing Andy Carroll and think, he's probably going to get one here. And he just never looked likely to yesterday. As Dana mentioned, a 0 XG for Reading in the first half. When it hit half-time at 2-0, I said to the other guys in the box, I was like, this is going to end up about 7-0, because that's just the way things are going. They never looked likely to score, and we were just playing outstanding. So, I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed my 7-0 prediction didn't come off, but none of my predictions did yesterday, apparently. So, it was just outstanding from us, but I would say extremely poor from them.
Yeah, and Paulin said that the game was defined in two key moments: Boro's penalty, which was a handball, but not a handball, but a handball, and then also Reddin's penalty shout, which he said that was a potential red card for Smith. I mean, Keith Stroud was brutal yesterday, and you know it's bad when both teams think a referee's crap. But does he have a point at all, Tom? Do you think there were the two key moments in the game that could have dictated it?
Watching it in real time, and bearing in mind I was in the West Stand, so like I was as far away from the handball incident as I could possibly be. Dana probably had a much better view of it than I did. I didn't think it was a penalty at the time, and then watching it back on replays, he does stick his arm out away from his body at a bit of an unnatural angle. And it just had me thinking, if this was the Premier League, VR was involved, that's probably a penalty. So I've got no arguments with that one. The potential red card for Smith, I do, however, think we got away with. I think that was more of a penalty and a red card than the one we won't mention from that dive and so on so at Sunderland. But it's just it balances out though, doesn't it? I think before the Sunderland game, they had a similar kind of situation go against them the week before. Then they had it against us, and then ours is balanced out here where we didn't get a penalty and a red card given. Like I say, I did think we got away with it, but deserve a bit of luck after that Sunderland one.
Yeah, and to be honest about Reading as well, like it sounds ridiculous, but even if we had 10 men, I think we would have beat Reading yesterday. And it sounds like quite a bold comment to say so, but I'm really worried if I'm a Reading fan because obviously the points deduction that's incoming, that's like 6 points I think they're going to be getting, but they're a team that's short of confidence. I thought yesterday as well that they were very easy to play against. The gap between the midfield and the defense was huge, which allowed Boro to pick up those pockets between the lines. And what really interests me about Boro, and now that I've noticed it, I can't stop seeing it, is when our centre backs get the ball in terms of Lenihan or Fry or McAnair, if he was to play. You'll see Howson or Hackney. They'll come in like a bit closer to the centre half, and then you'll see like a McGree or Aaron Ramsey in this case. They'll just move to the right or the left of Howson and Hackney, and they'll create like a space where between the lines. So all Boro have to do is once one player comes in, the outlet is just straight through because they're bringing so many players, and it would just create so much space between the midfield and the defense. And Boro have broke the lines. It's a very simple ball play, and it's just off the ball movement, which is just so good. And Aaron Ramsey was really good at it yesterday, and we broke the lines time and time again. But in terms of Reading, I mean, shape was okay. Individual errors was quite costly. They were a team of lack of confidence. I think that if you over the last few years of fighting for survival, it does catch up on you eventually. But for me, they're a worry. They're a real worry, and I would be maybe a bit concerned that relegation could potentially be a thing. I think they're lucky that Blackpool and Huddersfield are pretty much dead and buried, in my opinion. But she'll win but 5 games on the spin, and they'll be safe. But now I said that, but I think they're lucky there's 3 worst teams in Reading at the moment because they were really, really poor yesterday. A side that just wasn't cohesive at all from start to finish, and unfortunately, like if they'll probably beat Sheffield United now in the middle of the week at home with the points they get at home, but concerning. Probably, if I'm a Reading fan, very concerned. But then I want to chat about Aaron Ramsey, and he was amazing yesterday, absolute superstar. He looks like he's a player that is really coming into it now. He's picking up he's getting game time. He looks a bit more sharp. He's finding space. He's got that free roam ability now where it's not just McGree, it's Ramsey as well. And having 2 or 3 players in that position is so difficult to defend against because it calls chaos. It's just absolutely chaotic. And there's 2 goals yesterday, but how would you assess his initial influence on the side?
Just really, really good. As I said, really, really bright. And I think he took his goals really well. it was his header that he then chased down for the first one, and he has so much time in that position. I honestly thought he was going to pass to McGree, and I thought, oh God, get ready, this is going out for a throw-in. But just that composure, really, really composed for such a young talent. And also his second goal as well was exactly the same. It's just real composure to pick his spot into the corner again. And it's another option for us that is a goal threat. I think he'd scored a few goals, three or so goals for Norwich in his previous loan spell earlier this season. And it's just very good to have these options, Dawn, where we're not just relying on Chuba. Of course, he is the main part of goals for us, but it's not just him. McGree's chipping in, Ramsey's chipping in now. Archer's had his little go and probably will continue to. I thought Archer played well. We'll get onto the Praiser play soon, but I think the goals will sort of continue for him. And there's just a lot of other enforce as well. There's just so many options in that squad to score goals, and it's great to see that Ramsey's another one, because as I said pre-match, there was a few little questions around why isn't Force starting. It was probably more why isn't Force starting than why is Ramsey starting, but it was vindicated. It's just great that we've got this strength and depth now that we can play somebody like Aaron Ramsey and he can almost score a hat-trick. I think amongst the narrative of Chuba, it's sort of maybe being forgotten a little bit that he was one off a hat-trick as well. So yeah, it was brilliant. My man of the match.
Yeah, like he was mine as well. I thought he was really, really good yesterday. And Tom, like obviously with him coming at the side, do you think he gives us like a different dimension as well, especially now where after the West Brom result, it was Middlesbrough being found out. Tactically, Carrick was naive. He needs to learn more. All this kind of stuff that comes out from a defeat, and the dramaticness of football, but. Do you think it's like Ramsey itself? It gives Boro another outlet, another dimension, and also another thing for other teams to think about.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first, I just want to add on to what Dana was saying about the goal threat being kind of spread around the team now. Darragh Lenihan, I know you're watching or listening. Can you please just head in a corner for me, please? Because I've bet on you for the last 5 games, and you keep letting me down my bet builders. So we can do with defence being added onto the goal threats as well. But no, I think it is, a different dimension, as you mentioned there. What I did like yesterday is that both Ramsey and McGree were kind of in that free role in attacking midfield, both consistently switching sides and getting the space. And it's not something that we have with Force. I think he's kind of more of a direct threat on the right-hand side. And as much as he's not a winger, I do think he's trying to, add into that part of his game. I love the step overs that he started just banging out now every week. But he doesn't bring the same thing that Ramsey does to the team, where, like you say, you'd be able to kind of switch between him and McGree on sides of the field and both in that free role. Free roaming role, kind of picking up space. So it does give us a couple of different ways of playing, and I think that does contribute to the different goal threats being spread around the team as well, other than Darragh, who needs to head one in from a corner.
Please, Darragh, just score for Tom, please. I'm just sick of this.
He came somewhat close yesterday, didn't he? I think he had one where I don't know whether he was sort of leaning back a little bit, but I said, come on, Darragh, because like we're all sort of thinking it, aren't we? Like he's going to score a header at some point this season. It has to happen. But yeah, we'll see when that comes about, because he's been teasing it, but he's not yet delivered.
Playoff final, 93rd minute, Boro 1-1. Darragh Lenihan comes up trumps. Tom wins his bet. And everyone goes on that day.
If we get to the playoff final, I'm not betting on it. I'm not jinxing anything that day.
No, yeah, don't bet on the Boro.
But that will be the one that he scores in when I don't bet on it. So.
It will be.
Stop betting on it, and then he might score if you stop bloody betting on it.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, well, then I'm not going to make any money when he does. So, rock and hard place.
It's very true. I mean, you should never back the Boro. I mean, that's like an unwritten rule of life, I think. You know what I mean? Like, you should never do it. Never, ever bet on the Boro, because they always bloody boost it. Like that's like no, I just ruin everyone's coupon. I'm sick of it. Stop it. If anyone's betting on Boro at the moment, stop it. Just stop it. Unless you are betting on Middlesbrough and you started that run when Carrick took over, then fine. But anyway, let's move on to the praise and place, because the praise and place is the place where let's give praise to a player, coach, and staff, fan. Dana's lovely jumper that she's wearing. Tom's lovely painting. Is that a painting, Tom, behind you? I don't really know, but I can see a Pikachu. So I'm going to say Tom's Pikachu for that one. And, and for maybe Fernando Alonso for his amazing drive in the Aston Martin. There you go, F1 reference. I knew you like that, Tom. Anyway, praise and place. Who gets your place this week? Dana Malt, who gets your place in the praise and place?
I'm going to go with Cameron Archer because although he didn't score yesterday, he did, when I looked into the stats, he was really influential in the actual the game and some of the goals that we scored. 5 shot creating actions yesterday, the most in the game. 2 goal creating actions. He held the ball up against Andy Yiadom and released Ramsey in the build-up to the first penalty. And then he played a really good ball over the top for Giles for the 3rd goal. And that particular pass type was really important because Giles was able to cushion that cross into Aaron Ramsey. And it's just a shame he didn't score. I know Chuba said in his post-match interview with BBC Tees that he was trying to look for Archer to feed him through and give him an opportunity. And I really like that as well, that, Akpom's looking at his teammates and wanting them to score as well as himself. But I think with Cameron Archer, he hasn't scored since the Sheffield United victory, but I think he's changed the dynamic of this team. And he made a really good run yesterday that unfortunately wasn't spotted. But he's just the type of striker that we need in this team. And he will get the goals. I think he will continue to, or they'll come back and he'll be on the score sheet again very soon. But his hard work is not going unnoticed for me. And I really, really wanted to put him in the present place for that this week. I'm sure there's just loads more options of praise and place picks as well, but I think for me, Cameron Archer definitely deserves a mention.
Yeah, and I feel like Archer's probably the only player that could play the Akpom role, and you could put him in there, and then you could put Force up top, Jones on the right, and Giles on the left. And I feel like that would really work. If Akpom ever got injured, I think Denny, you mentioned it in our chat, right? You were saying if Chuba got injured, who would you put in that position? Mine would be Ramsey. But Tom, I'm going to ask you that question as well. Tom, who do you think you'd put in that position if Akpom was to be injured, but then also go into your present place afterwards? Because I'm excited to hear it.
I don't even want to think about Akpom being injured, to be fair. But
yeah,
no, I think Archer could do a good job in that role. There was a point yesterday. I can't remember who it was, but they were bigger than him. Not that's difficult with him being 5'8", but he was chasing it down the left-hand side in the first half, so it would have been closest to the east stand. I can't remember who it was who was after him for that, but he got the wrong side of them and pretty much held the ball up and muscled them off the ball. And for someone of his stature, 5'8", and he's got such a good centre of gravity and strength there to hold the ball up. So I think that will contribute into that Akpom role should he ever be injured. And I definitely do think that he went a bit under the radar yesterday just because he didn't score. I think Akpom and Ramsey are going to get most of the plaudits, but you can look back at those goals and you can see Cameron Archer in the build-up for most of them. So, he definitely deserves credit for yesterday. For me, I think it's just like Dana said there. There's so many options, Don, that you can put for the praise and place this week. I think the two I have to go with, although I've just said they're going to be receiving most of the plaudits, are Aaron Ramsey and Chuba Akpom. Chuba Akpom, I think, deserves it just for finally breaking that 20-goal a season landmark that we've been looking for from every striker since Bernie Slaven. And Aaron Ramsey, just a great game yesterday. I think since he's came into the team, which I think was only Sheffield United, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was only like a surprise inclusion there and came off the bench. So it's only really been a short period of time, but he has been playing well. And yesterday, like I say, with him and McGree both playing in that free roaming attacking midfield role, he was able to do some great stuff with the ball. And I think he's another one where you look at him. He's obviously getting back to match fitness, although he might already be there. But we're getting back to form after his injury, and you can tell he's just getting better and more confident every game. So definitely deserves credit and being the present place for yesterday.
Yeah. For me, I'm gonna go. Obviously, Akpom deserves to be mentioned, but I'm gonna go Ryan Giles. His crosses yesterday. I mean, he just there's gonna be a lot of fans who are like, "Oh, he didn't beat his first man in the first half," but that second half, good grief, that ball for the third one where he just plays it right across the box in the corridor of uncertainty, and we get on the end of it is just amazing. And then the second one was really good to pull it back for Aaron Ramsey. It's just assist rate is amazing. Like, it's just the amount of chances that he creates with his left foot. I've just never seen it before from a left back in the Championship, and he's just a very, very talented boy. And I will love if Boro signed him on a permanent deal. So please get promoted, Boro, and stay in the. Or if we don't get promoted, please stay up Wolves, which I think you are now, and we will take him off your hands because he is great. But yeah, guys, let's look ahead to Swansea now, because Boro travel to the Swansea.com stadium. Very creative and original stadium name that. To face, you guessed it, Swansea. So we spoke to Luke from the SwansCast Podcast to find out a little bit more. And just before we go to it, I'm going to leave you with the warm hands and soothing sounds, because he's got a very soothing voice, does Luke. So enjoy this opposition preview.
Hi guys, it's Luke from SwansCast here. Thanks for having me back on the Boro Breakdown podcast. Going to talk a little bit about Swansea's season so far. Probably the complete opposite of how your season's going. I can see you doing very well, especially since the manager change. Looking a very strong contender now for the playoffs, so even perhaps you could push further. We'll see. All I can say is best of luck for you going forward. And we're a little bit scared, I think, after seeing your result against Reading. 5-0 win doesn't look like a good match for us right now, because we are on the other end of the spectrum where the manager is perhaps under a bit of pressure. So what looked like could have been a promising season for Swansea has kind of fallen off the rails a little bit, and Russell Martin is under huge pressure. Very thin squad, no depth. There's basically the first team and a couple of players that can rotate in, and that's about it. We had no signings in January, which was very poor, with some of the first team players leaving as well. A couple of loan players that got recalled, and then Michael Obafemi obviously went to Burnley, was the big transfer. And at the moment we seem to not be able to win a game to save our lives, so very, very struggling. And that has been made known by the fans as well, who are very not happy with the current situation at the club. And that's kind of pointed at the owners and the manager at the same time. People are frustrated with a lot of aspects of what is going on at the moment. It's a difficult conversation though, because it's not necessarily all Russell Martin's fault. You could argue that he hasn't been backed the way that he should have been, or has been told he would have been, but at the same time there's a little bit of stubbornness and things are not working. He's not making the changes perhaps needed to get anything out of the team at the moment. So we have naturally been slipping down the table. I think since we beat Cardiff, our big rivals, back in October, where we were maybe fourth in the league, looking at knocking on the door of the guys ahead even, it's all fallen apart. I think we've maybe only had like 4 or 5 wins since that time. We went on a really barren run afterwards, and it's just quite poor all round right now for us. So going into this game, you notice our first team goalkeeper, Stephen Bender's injured. We've had Andy Fisher come in, who actually was signed by Russell Martin last year to be first team goalkeeper, but has struggled. He's been making quite a few mistakes, and it's not necessarily, I think, it's hard to say if it's him as a goalkeeper or his confidence. I think the fans are massively on his back. They really don't want to see him in the goals, and all you need to do is look at the highlights against Luton to see the clanger he dropped there. That cost us a point, where we went down 1-0. Dropping a low cross, basically resulting in a tap-in for the Luton player. Our defence is very leaky. I think we've conceded the most goals in the league, or we had last week when I checked anyway. We tend to be able to score quite a few, but that's not... There haven't been as many goals recently as there was earlier in the season. Last time I checked, we believe 6th in the league for goals scored, but again, the bad defence, being the most leaky defence in the league, is a problem. So when you go put 5 past Reading, I think maybe you can come and play us with a bit of excitement. if you can score goals that easily, then yeah, our defence is probably going to give you a couple. Playing at home as well, it's a little bit of a toxic atmosphere at the moment for all the reasons I've mentioned above. A lot of fans are done with Russell Martin, want him gone, want someone else to come in. Other fans then are frustrated at the owners. Either way, it results in a toxic atmosphere towards the players, and booing at half time, booing at full time, getting a bit agitated when the ball's not going forward, if we're behind, if we're just keeping the ball, which is our style of play. People are booing and not being happy, but the fact that we're not being more direct and trying to score goals, but it is the style of play that Russell Martin wants to do, so there's a conflict there. That's all affecting the confidence of the players, and that is very, very visual to watch on the pitch and the way that we are playing at the moment. Not sure what's going on with Matt Grimes, but he wasn't in the squad for the Luton match. I'm assuming he's injured. I haven't seen anything to suggest how long he might be out for, but if he's not there against you guys, massive miss for us, because he's what keeps us ticking, and I'd be a little bit concerned for the Swans against you if he doesn't return. If he does, hopefully we can make a game of it and not lose the match, but I'm not confident, and I'm going to say Middlesbrough to win 3-1. But thanks for having me on again. I'll be more than happy to speak to you in the future, but maybe you'll be in the Premier League next year, so I won't be doing voice notes for you. So good luck for the rest of the season, and catch up with you again.
Cheers for that, Luke. And I told you, it's really soothing voice. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, let's chat about Swansea, because Luke wasn't particularly happy with how they've been playing this season, and also he mentioned around like the worst defense in the league. They do have the second lowest for clean sheets with 6, and they've lost 5 of the last 7 and 3 wins in the last 21. In terms of like the highest football ratings, Matt Grimes does top that list with Ryan Manning and Joe Perot. Matt Grimes is a fantastic footballer, by the way. Will not be surprised if he's in the Premier League very soon. I really enjoy him. But how we feel about this game, guys, because it hasn't been in the most, shall we say, lucky grounds for Boro over the years. So don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I just took a little trip in my time machine to the last time that Boro beat Swansea at Swansea, and get this, I Got a Feeling was number 1 in the American music charts. Chichi Strider took top spot in the UK top 40. God. Cascada, Evacuate the Dance Floor, was in the top 10.
What a tune.
I know, yeah.
Cascada, you love a bit of Cascada.
I had not long celebrated my 10th birthday. Gordon Brown was the UK Prime Minister, and Freddos were probably about 5 pence. But what hasn't changed since, I found an article in the Daily Mail, a headline. It said, Crystal Palace boss Neil Warnock furious as good goal disallowed, and Nicky Maynard, God, that's a name, smashes late Bristol City winner. So some things really don't change. But the last time that Boro beat Swansea at Swansea was the 15th of August, 2009. So based on that, I'm a little bit nervous, but I was speaking to Neil Maddison leaving the Riverside yesterday, and he said it's going to be a matchup between 2 sides that want to play football, and essentially what will decide the game is who has the best quality. And you have to say on paper and in everything else, you would say that Middlesbrough have the best quality there. So I should probably believe. But there's certain hoodoos that we need to break. And in the promotion season on Dry Talk Anchor, we did break a few. I was at one of them at Sheff Wednesday. There was another one at Nottingham Forest. There's another one that we have to conquer. Yeah, Ipswich as well. The David Nugent match. We have to conquer another one ourselves under Michael Carrick on Saturday. So yeah, toxicity at Swansea. Hopefully we can take advantage of that and get the 3 points.
And there's some really good things that you mentioned there, Dan. Some absolute great songs. I remember when I Got a Feeling, used to play every single game at the Boro. Win, lose or draw, it was on. Tom, how have you got a feeling about the game?
Yeah, I feel like we're going to win now. I wasn't feeling like that when I was hearing the Swansea stats, where it's like 3 wins in the last 21 and losing 5 out of the last 7. But I think the fact that we haven't won there since 2009 balances that out. So I reckon we're gonna go there. We're gonna turn them over 3-0.
Oh God, sorry, I still laugh at my own joke. But the 3-0 the Swansea. So it's 3-0 Boro, sorry, not Swansea. Also, my eyes are watering. So I'm just full of cold as well, so I'm a killer. But anyway,
I'm surprised you haven't done your little Welsh accent that you did last time.
I can't do it. Can't do it. Let's just hearing Luke just talk and just like it would put mine to shame. I just can't do it. But yeah, Dan, have you got a prediction at all? I mean, you do love a prediction once in a while. Please don't curse us, but go for it.
I'm thinking a Davy Moll 3-1 win for the mighty Boro.
Davy Malt hat trick. Is that what you're thinking? Your dad
Yeah.
playing up front, target man. Love out like that. So 3-0, 3-1. I would take a 2-0. I'd take 2-0 zip, and that would be very, very nice. We need to win, don't we? Really, I think it's a difficult place. I think if we get the first goal and it's early, like say like 10 to 15 minutes in, you get a bit on, you're on top of the game. You start turning a bit toxic, and that's where like you want us to be. The longer we leave it 0-0, I'd be more and more worried about the game. But guys, that's it. Thank you very much for joining me as always. And to listeners and the viewers, thank you very much for watching and listening to us as well. If you could give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider, subscribe to us on YouTube, and do all of that engagement stuff, because that helps us get found and other Boro fans find us. And also we get charted too, which is really cool. But Boro make the Royals in Smeet, and now we have to aim to cause a Russell in Swansea. This has been the Boro Breakdown Podcast, and that was our Boro Match Day Chatter in a pod.